Ladies, let me speak to your soul tonight. Too often, women are told that their value comes from what they give, what they sacrifice, or how much pain they can endure. But let me tell you something powerful. God never designed you to live empty, drained, or disrespected. You were not created to carry the weight of everyone else while forgetting your own worth. Self-respect is not pride. It's not arrogance. It is recognizing the sacred value that God placed in you before the foundation of the world. When you stand in that truth, when you choose to focus on yourself, you are not abandoning others. You are aligning with God's purpose. Because a woman who respects herself attracts the right opportunities, the right relationships, and the right kind of peace. The enemy wants you distracted, desperate, and dependent. But God wants you whole, confident, and unshakable. Tonight, I want you to understand that even God honors a woman who refuses to settle for less than his best. So lean in, because what I'm about to share may just shift the way you see yourself, your worth, and your destiny forever. Self-respect is one of the most powerful forces in a woman's life. It is not just an attitude, not just an idea, but a spiritual principle. When you respect yourself, you set the tone for how every person, every relationship, every opportunity, and every circumstance will approach you. You don't have to announce it, you don't have to defend it, and you don't have to explain it. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you protect your boundaries, all of it silently declares to the world how you deserve to be treated. There are women who spend years wondering why they keep ending up in the same cycles of disappointment, betrayal, or disrespect. The truth is, life will often give you exactly what you allow. If you lower your standards, people will step over them. If you compromise your worth, people will treat you as though you have none. But when you begin to honor yourself, when you refuse to settle for less than dignity, when you stop giving discounts on your value, something changes. The entire atmosphere around you begins to shift. Self-respect is sacred because it aligns with the very nature of God. He created you in his image, which means you carry a divine stamp of worth. To dishonor yourself is to dishonor what he has placed inside of you. That is why boundaries are holy, why dignity is not optional, and why protecting your spirit is an act of worship. Every time you say no to what does not align with your purpose, you are saying yes to the greatness God has placed within you. A woman who values herself understands that love is not proven by how much pain she can endure. Too many have been conditioned to believe that sacrifice, compromise, and silence are the requirements of acceptance. But love that requires you to abandon yourself is not love at all. It is bondage. Respecting yourself means choosing freedom over captivity, clarity over confusion, peace over chaos. It means refusing to allow anyone to make you feel small, unworthy, or replaceable. The sacredness of self-respect is seen in the way it establishes order in your life. It creates a filter for who can enter your circle, who can speak into your spirit, and who can walk with you on your journey. Not everyone who desires access to you deserves access to you. When you respect yourself, you discern the difference. You stop entertaining people who drain you, manipulate you, or use you. You stop allowing environments that strip your confidence or silence your voice. Instead, you begin to attract relationships and opportunities that honor your presence, that recognize your contribution, and that celebrate your existence. This is not arrogance. This is not pride. This is alignment with truth. Because the truth is, you were never meant to live beneath your value. The truth is, you are more than what others expect from you. The truth is, God does not call you to beg, chase, or plead for worth. He has already declared it over your life. When you step into that awareness, you walk differently, you speak differently, you choose differently. The world will always test your boundaries. You speak differently, you choose differently. The world will always test your boundaries. Life will always send situations to see if you are serious about your worth. That is why you must remain consistent in your self-respect. The moment you compromise, the moment you allow someone to convince you to lower the bar, you open the door for disappointment. Yet when you stand firm, when you refuse to shrink to make others comfortable, when you decide that peace is non-negotiable, you protect the treasure God has placed within you. Self-respect also determines the level of success you achieve. A woman who values herself will not remain in environments that abuse her talent, overlook her contribution, or limit her growth. She knows when it is time to walk away, when it is time to demand more, when it is time to stretch higher. That kind of courage is birthed out of respect for what God has invested in her. Because to stay in a place that diminishes you is to rob the world of the fullness of your gift. When you honor yourself, you give yourself permission to rise, to shine, to expand. There is something magnetic about a woman who respects herself. People see it before she speaks. It's in the way she carries her presence, the way she walks into a room with quiet confidence, the way she refuses to chase validation. She doesn't need to prove anything because she already knows who she is. That kind of presence demands respect, and the world responds to it. Opportunities find her. People admire her. Even those who don't like her cannot deny her. Why? Because she has set the standard. And let me tell you, self-respect doesn't mean you don't love others. In fact, it makes your love more powerful. A woman who respects herself teaches others how to love her, and in turn, how to love themselves. She doesn't pour from emptiness, she pours from overflow. She doesn't give until she is drained, she gives from a place of strength. This is why the sacredness of self-respect is also an act of service. It ensures that the love you offer is genuine, healthy, and sustainable. But it begins with a choice, a decision. A moment when you look at your life and say, no more allowing disrespect to slide, no more silencing yourself to keep peace, no more shrinking just to be tolerated, no more mistaking suffering for loyalty. From this day forward, you choose to honor yourself as God honors you. From this day forward, you choose dignity over desperation. From this day forward, you decide that peace is priceless and your worth is non-negotiable. When you honor yourself, heaven honors you. Doors open that once were shut. Strength rises in places you once felt weak. Clarity replaces confusion. You become unshakable because your identity is no longer built on the shaky foundation of other people's opinions. It is built on truth, on faith, on the eternal stamp of worth placed on you by your Creator. And let me remind you, the world will always have something to say. They will call you selfish, arrogant, or difficult. But understand, that is only because they benefited when you didn't respect yourself. The moment you set boundaries, the moment you demand dignity, the moment you value your presence, those who were comfortable with your silence will be uncomfortable with your strength. Let them be. Because your life is not about appeasing their expectations. It is about fulfilling your God-given purpose. Every time you respect yourself, you teach the world how to treat you. Every time you refuse to settle, you raise the standard not just for yourself, but for the women who will come after you. Every time you honor your worth, you honor the one who created you. That is why self-respect is sacred. It is not just for you, it is for your daughters, your sisters, your community, and the generations to come. It is a ripple effect that continues long after you. So walk tall. Speak with strength. Protect your spirit, demand your peace, and never again forget this truth. A woman who values herself sets the standard for how the world treats her. And when she does, even God himself stands to honor her. Love was never meant to be something you had to chase. Love was never meant to be something you had to beg for, fight for, or lose yourself in order to receive. From the very beginning, before your first breath, before you were even aware of who you are, God had already placed worth inside of you. He did not create you empty. He did not create you desperate. He did not create you incomplete, waiting for someone else to validate you. He created you whole, chosen, and powerful. The idea that you must beg for love, that you must shrink yourself to be noticed, or compromise yourself to be accepted, is not divine. It is the voice of insecurity and the lies of a broken world. True love, the kind that comes from God, is never built on desperation. It flows from abundance. It flows from recognition of worth. It flows from the understanding that you are already valuable, already precious, already enough. When a woman forgets this, she finds herself settling for less than she deserves. She begins to tolerate disrespect, confusion, and neglect. She starts to believe that as long as she holds on, as long as she sacrifices more, as long as she gives beyond her capacity, she will finally be seen, finally be loved. But here is the truth. Love that has to be begged for is not love. If you have to fight just to be acknowledged, it is not love. If you have to constantly explain why you deserve respect, it is not love. God's design for love is rooted in dignity. It is rooted in peace. It is rooted in mutual honor. Anything less than that is not aligned with his will for your life. That is why you must stop believing that you are not enough as you are. You were chosen before the foundation of the world. You were designed with intention. You were filled with power. And because of that, the kind of love that is meant for you will recognize you, honor you, and celebrate you without you having to beg for it. When you carry yourself with the awareness that you are chosen, something shifts. You stop tolerating half-hearted attention. You stop running after those who continually walk away. You stop allowing people to treat you like an option while you give them your everything. You realize that your time, your energy, your heart, and your presence are sacred, and anyone who wants to be part of your life must treat them as sacred too. This does not mean you close your heart. It means you guard it with wisdom. It means you no longer confuse persistence with love. It means you refuse to measure your value by how many people choose you. Because being chosen by people means nothing if you forget that you were already chosen by God. His choice overrides every rejection, every abandonment, every moment you thought you were not enough. His choice reminds you that even when people overlook you, heaven sees you. Even when people mistreat you, heaven validates you. There is strength in knowing that love should not come through struggle. Real love is not built on begging. It is built on recognition. When you are worthy in your own eyes, you attract people who see that worth. But when you live in desperation, when you live as though your value depends on someone else's validation, you send a signal to the world that you will tolerate anything just to be chosen. That is why you must rise above that mindset. You must declare to yourself that you were created for more than crumbs. You were created to sit at the table of abundance, to walk in confidence, to be surrounded by honor. Love is not just about romance. This principle touches every area of your life. Friendships, family relationships, workplace dynamics. All of it requires you to stand in your worth. If you allow yourself to beg for acceptance in any space, you will end up drained, unappreciated, and undervalued. But when you remember that God designed you to carry dignity into every room, you stop playing small. You start demanding respect without raising your voice, simply by the way you walk, the way you carry yourself, the way you honor your own spirit. The world often teaches women to settle. It teaches them that their power lies in being quiet, in being accommodating, in never asking for too much. But the truth is, your power lies in knowing that you are already enough. You don't need to apologize for your standards. You don't need to explain why you expect respect. You don't need to shrink so others can feel comfortable. When God created you, He already gave you permission to take up space, to be bold, to be powerful. And when you walk in that truth, you do not have to chase love. Love finds you. You were never designed to beg because begging diminishes what God has declared. Begging says, I am not sure if I am enough. But being chosen says, I know who I am. And if you cannot see it, that is your limitation, not mine. This is why a woman rooted in self-worth is so powerful. She can walk away from anything that dishonors her because she understands that rejection is not a reflection of her value, but of someone else's inability to recognize it. There is a peace that comes when you stop chasing what was never meant for you, when you stop forcing doors that refuse to open, when you stop begging for people who do not have the capacity to love you as you deserve. That peace is God's confirmation that your worth is intact and that what is truly yours will never require you to lose yourself. So many women exhaust themselves trying to be everything for everyone, trying to earn love through sacrifice, trying to hold on to people who are not holding on to them. But you must understand, love is not something to be earned. It is something to be shared. And the right love, the one that aligns with God's design, will meet you where you are, honor who you are, and help you grow into who you are meant to be. There is no greater freedom than finally realizing you don't have to beg. You don't have to prove. You don't have to compete. You were already chosen. You were already called. You were already set apart. And because of that, your life becomes less about convincing others and more about walking confidently in who you already are. The world might not always affirm you. People might not always celebrate you, but God's choice is enough. His declaration over your life is enough. He said you are fearfully and wonderfully made. He said you are the head and not the tail. He said you are more than a conqueror. That truth is stronger than any rejection, stronger than any abandonment, stronger than any betrayal. When you understand this, you live differently. You don't wait for permission to be powerful. You don't wait for someone else to validate your worth. You don't wait for love to come in the form of crumbs. You step boldly into every day knowing that if someone cannot see your value, it does not diminish your value. You step boldly knowing that what God has chosen, no one can cancel. So stop begging. Stop chasing. Stop compromising. You were not designed for that. You were designed to walk with dignity, to stand in your power, to know your worth. You were designed to be chosen, and because you were chosen, you are unstoppable. You don't need to beg for love because love was already written into your existence by the one who created you. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is one of the most spiritual decisions you can ever make. Somewhere along the way, the world convinced women that paying attention to themselves was wrong, that taking time for their own growth was selfish, that choosing their peace meant abandoning others. That lie has kept many women trapped, drained, and unfulfilled. But the truth is this: when you focus on yourself, you align with the very purpose God has placed over your life. You begin to live in balance with His design instead of bending to the expectations of everyone else. God never asked you to lose yourself while trying to save everyone else. He never called you to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders while neglecting your own soul. Focusing on yourself is not about ignoring others. It is about building the strength, wisdom, and clarity to be who you were truly meant to be. It means you take responsibility for your own healing. It means you guard your own spirit. It means you recognize that your energy, your joy, and your peace are not infinite supplies that can be poured out endlessly without being refilled. When a woman decides to focus on herself, something powerful happens. She starts to notice the areas of her life that need attention. She stops running from her wounds and begins to heal them. She stops running from her wounds and begins to heal them. She stops running from her wounds and begins to heal them. She stops ignoring her dreams and starts pursuing them. She stops living on autopilot and begins to live intentionally. This shift is not selfish. It is sacred. Because you cannot fully walk in God's purpose for your life while constantly ignoring your own needs. A drained woman cannot fulfill destiny. A broken spirit cannot walk in freedom. A distracted mind cannot hear clearly from God. The alignment begins when you slow down enough to ask yourself, am I living the life God intended for me, or am I just surviving to meet the expectations of others? Too often, women confuse sacrifice with purpose. They pour out endlessly into relationships that give nothing back, jobs that diminish their gifts, and situations that rob their peace. And while the world praises them for being strong, on the inside, they are running on empty. But strength is not proven by how much you can endure without breaking. Strength is proven by the courage to realign yourself with what God actually intended for your life. Focusing on yourself allows you to hear God more clearly. When your mind is scattered in 1,000 directions, when you are constantly living for the approval of others, you cannot discern His voice. But when you turn inward, when you quiet the noise, when you choose stillness and reflection, God begins to reveal things. He begins to show you the gifts you have ignored, the callings you have silenced, the boundaries you have abandoned. And in those moments of focus, you discover that the greatest obedience you can give to God is to honor what He has placed inside you. There is nothing selfish about rest. There is nothing selfish about healing. There is nothing selfish about saying no to what drains you. These are acts of alignment. They remind you that your life is not meant to be wasted in chaos and confusion. They remind you that your body, your mind, and your soul are temples of the Spirit. To neglect them is to dishonor what God has entrusted to you. But to care for them, to nurture them, to focus on them, that is worship. That is obedience. That is alignment. When you focus on yourself, you also begin to raise your standards. You start to see that not everything deserves your time, not everyone deserves your energy, not every opportunity deserves your attention. You realize that distraction is the enemy of destiny. And so you cut away what does not align, not because you are selfish, but because you understand that every moment wasted on what is not for you is a moment stolen from what God has designed for you. This focus sharpens your vision. It strengthens your spirit. It positions you for the very blessings that once seemed out of reach. There will always be voices that try to shame you for focusing on yourself. They will call you distant, difficult, or self-centered. But understand this. Most of those voices benefited when you were distracted, drained, and desperate. They were comfortable when you had no boundaries, when you gave without limits, when you ignored your own needs to meet theirs. Of course, they resist your focus because your alignment exposes their dependency on your disalignment, but you cannot live for their comfort. You must live for your purpose. When you focus on yourself in the way God intended, everyone around you benefits. A healed woman loves better. A peaceful woman leads better. A focused woman inspires better. A whole woman creates change that a broken woman never could. By choosing yourself, you become a gift to the world in ways that exhaustion never could produce. By respecting yourself, you teach others to do the same. By protecting your energy, you make space to give from a place of strength rather than resentment. Focusing on yourself is also the foundation of wisdom. You begin to notice patterns. You begin to understand what triggers your peace and what destroys it. You become intentional about the environments you place yourself in. You learn to recognize who builds you up and who tears you down. You no longer confuse loyalty with bondage. You no longer confuse loyalty with bondage. You no longer confuse suffering with strength. Instead, you live with discernment, and that discernment keeps you aligned with God's will. It is not selfish to want joy. It is not selfish to want peace. It is not selfish to want respect. These desires are not luxuries. They are divine rights. God promised peace that surpasses understanding. He promised joy unspeakable. He promised abundance of life. To desire these things is not selfish. It is stepping into the promises that have already been written for you. And the only way to receive them is by focusing on yourself enough to align with them. There is power in saying, I choose me, not because you are rejecting others, but because you are finally refusing to reject yourself. For too long, women have put themselves last, thinking it was humility. But neglect is not humility. Neglect is destruction. Humility is knowing who you are in God and walking confidently in that truth. And when you focus on yourself with humility, you are not placing yourself above others. You are simply refusing to live beneath the calling that has already been placed on your life. Focusing on yourself is also a form of faith. It says, God, I trust that your purpose for me is worth protecting. It says, God, I believe that if I take care of the vessel you gave me, you will take me further than I could imagine. It says, God, I will not waste what you invested in me. That kind of faith shifts your life. It opens doors that desperation could never open. It attracts opportunities that neglect could never attract. It places you in alignment where blessings begin to flow effortlessly, not because you are striving, but because you are positioned correctly. Focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is sacred. It is obedience. It is purpose. It is power. And when you make that choice, you step into the life God intended for you all along. You step out of the noise and into clarity. You step out of chaos and into peace. You step out of desperation and into destiny. And once you taste the freedom of alignment, you will never again confuse it with selfishness. Relationships do not define who you are. They may shape your experiences. They may teach you lessons. They may reveal strengths and weaknesses, but they do not hold the power to determine your identity. Your identity was established long before any relationship ever entered your life. It was set in place by the Creator who formed you with intention, who called you chosen, and who stamped His image on your life. No person, no title, no label, and no relationship has the authority to rewrite what God has already declared about you. Too many women carry the weight of labels that people have placed on them. They are called too much, too little, too strong, too weak. They are defined by the title society attaches to them. Wife, mother, single, divorced, widowed, successful, struggling. And while some of these titles may describe your circumstances, none of them can ever define your identity. Because identity is not a reflection of where you are or what you've been through. Identity is a reflection of how God sees you. God does not call you by your mistakes. He does not call you by your pain. He does not call you by the relationships that ended or the ones that betrayed you. He calls you His own. He calls you beloved. He calls you fearfully and wonderfully made. And when you begin to live out of that truth, you are no longer shaken by the way people see you. You are no longer bound by the titles that others want to attach to your life. Relationships can add to your journey, but they cannot complete you. You are already complete in the one who created you. You are not half a person waiting for someone else to make you whole. You are not an unfinished story waiting for another character to step in and define your ending. You were born with purpose. You were born with identity. You were born whole. And until you truly believe that, you will continue to look for validation in spaces that were never designed to give it. When a woman ties her worth to a relationship, she becomes vulnerable to instability because relationships change, people change, circumstances shift. What once felt certain can suddenly disappear. But when your identity is rooted in how God sees you, you are unshakable. But when your identity is rooted in how God sees you, you are unshakable. You can survive the ending of a relationship without losing yourself. You can walk through betrayal without questioning your value. You can face seasons of loneliness without forgetting that you are never truly alone. This is why your relationship with yourself, grounded in God's truth, is so important. If you do not know who you are, the world will try to tell you. And the world's version of your identity will always be too small. It will reduce you to your role, your status, your achievements, or your failures. But you are more than all of that. You are a daughter of the King. You are an heir to promises greater than anything this world could offer. And no relationship can add or subtract from that truth. Think about the freedom that comes when you no longer need labels to validate your existence. You don't have to prove your worth by being in a relationship. You don't have to hide in shame if you are single. You don't have to measure your value by who stayed and who left. Because whether people are for you or against you, God's declaration over your life does not change. He said you were chosen. He said you are loved. He said you are valuable. And his voice outweighs every other. There is nothing wrong with desiring healthy relationships. There is nothing wrong with wanting love, companionship, or partnership. But the danger comes when you start believing that your identity depends on having them. Because when you do, you hand over the power of your worth to another human being. And no person, no matter how good or loving, was ever meant to carry that responsibility. People are imperfect. They can fail you. They can misunderstand you. They can walk away. But God never fails. His love never shifts. His opinion never changes. That is why anchoring your identity in Him is the only secure foundation. When you begin to live from this truth, you carry yourself differently. You no longer tolerate relationships that diminish you. You no longer beg for spaces that don't celebrate you. You no longer cling to people who treat you like you are disposable. Instead, you stand firm in your identity and attract relationships that align with who you truly are. You draw to yourself people who honor your worth because you already honor it in yourself. Relationships can reflect your growth, but they are not the source of it. They can support your journey, but they cannot carry it. Your journey is between you and God. And when you finally grasp that your identity is anchored in His vision of you, you become untouchable. The storms of betrayal can come, but they will not drown you. The winds of rejection can blow, but they will not uproot you. The seasons of loneliness can test you, but they will not break you. Because your roots go deeper than people's approval. They go straight into the soil of God's truth. The world will try to convince you that your worth is measured by your connections. It will try to convince you that you're only valuable if you are chosen by someone else. But the reality is, you were already chosen before anyone else had the power to choose or reject you. That truth alone should set you free from comparison, competition, and insecurity. No relationship can add to the worth that God already placed in you, and no failed relationship can take it away. That is why your focus should never be on chasing identity through people, but on living out the identity already secured in you. This is how you walk in freedom. This is how you protect your peace. This is how you rise above the noise of opinions and labels. You are not what they called you. You are not what they left you with. You are not what the broken relationships whispered about you in the dark. You are who God says you are, and that is enough. More than enough. Stronger than enough. Greater than enough. And the moment you truly accept that, the moment you live with the awareness that your identity is already secure, you no longer walk in fear of losing people. Because losing people is not losing yourself. Relationships may come and go, but your identity remains. Love may begin and end, but your worth stands unshaken. Labels may shift with seasons, but God's truth remains eternal. There is liberation in this truth. It allows you to love without clinging, to give without losing, to build without begging. It allows you to live in fullness rather than emptiness. Because when you are secure in God's vision of you, every relationship becomes an addition, not a definition. Every connection becomes a reflection, not a foundation. You are already a whole. You are already chosen. You are already enough. And no relationship has the authority to change that. Boundaries are blessings. They are not walls to shut people out. They are gates that guard the treasure within you. They are not signs of selfishness. They are signs of wisdom. They are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting the peace and purpose that God has placed inside of you. Too many women have been taught to live without boundaries, to say yes when their spirit cries no, to give when they are already empty, to accept behavior that wounds them because they fear losing connection. But a life without boundaries is a life without balance, and a life without balance will always lead to brokenness. Protecting your peace is not optional. It is necessary. Peace is a gift, and it is one of the clearest signs of God's presence in your life. And when peace is disrupted, when your spirit is unsettled, when your heart is constantly in turmoil, it is a sign that something is out of alignment. And alignment cannot exist without boundaries. Boundaries are the lines that separate what is acceptable from what is destructive, what is healthy from what is toxic, what is sacred from what is profane. They are not restrictions, they are protections. They protect your heart, your mind, your energy, and your calling. A woman who lives with boundaries understands her worth. She knows that not everyone who desires access to her deserves it. She knows that her time is valuable, her energy is sacred, and her spirit cannot be freely poured out to everyone. She chooses carefully where she invests herself, because she understands that her life is soil, and what she allows to be planted there will grow. Without boundaries, weeds take root. With boundaries, fruit begins to flourish. Boundaries are blessings because they teach others how to treat you. If you allow people to cross lines without correction, they will assume those lines do not exist. If you permit disrespect without resistance, you give permission for it to continue. But when you set a boundary, when you declare with firmness that your peace will not be violated, you are not only protecting yourself, you are teaching others the standard by which they must approach you. And those who truly love and respect you will not be offended by your boundaries. They will be grateful for them because boundaries also create clarity. There is nothing godly about letting yourself be walked on. There is nothing holy about letting yourself be walked on. There is nothing holy about ignoring your own needs. There is nothing righteous about staying silent while others diminish you. Holiness is not weakness. Righteousness is not passive. Even Christ himself set boundaries. He walked away from crowds when they drained him. He chose solitude when he needed to pray. He corrected those who disrespected his mission. If the Son of God modeled boundaries, how much more should you? Protecting your peace honors the gift inside of you. You are carrying vision, potential, wisdom, and strength. But if you are constantly surrounded by noise, if you are constantly fighting off chaos, if you are constantly tolerating what drains you, you will never have the capacity to nurture what God has placed in you. Your peace is the environment where your gift can grow. It is the atmosphere where creativity flows, where faith rises, where clarity comes. Without peace, your gift withers. Without boundaries, your gift is wasted. Sometimes people will call you selfish for setting boundaries. They will say you've changed. They will accuse you of being too distant, too strong, too cold. But understand this, those who are offended by your boundaries are often the ones who benefited from you not having them. They thrived when you said yes to everything. They prospered when you allowed disrespect to go unchecked. They were comfortable when you lived with no protection around your spirit. But your growth will make some people uncomfortable, and that is okay. Growth always exposes who was there for you and who was there for what you could give. Boundaries are also blessings because they give you space to hear from God. When you are constantly surrounded by demands, constantly consumed by obligations, you cannot discern his voice. But when you step back, when you protect your quiet, when you guard your time, you create room for divine direction. That direction becomes your compass, guiding you into relationships that build rather than break, into environments that nourish rather than drain, into opportunities that align rather than distract. A life without boundaries is a life that leaks. Every demand, every voice, every distraction takes a piece of you until you are left empty. But a life with boundaries is a life that flows. You choose where your energy goes. You decide what deserves your attention. You protect your spirit from unnecessary battles. That flow allows you to remain full, and when you give You give from abundance, not depletion. Protecting your peace also protects your relationships. When you live without boundaries, resentment builds. You begin to feel used, unappreciated, taken for granted. But when you set boundaries, you create healthier dynamics. People know what to expect from you. They understand the limits of your time and energy. This clarity prevents misunderstandings and strengthens connections. Boundaries do not destroy relationships, they refine them. They filter out what is toxic and preserve what is healthy. Boundaries are not only external, they are also internal. You must set boundaries in your own mind. You cannot allow negative thoughts to take root unchecked. You cannot allow fear to dictate your decisions. You cannot allow the past to constantly replay in your spirit. Setting internal boundaries means choosing what you meditate on, what you entertain, and what you allow to shape your self-image. It means refusing to let shame define you, refusing to let lies control you, refusing to let worry steal your peace. Protecting your peace means protecting your future. The enemy thrives in chaos. He wants your mind scattered, your heart unsettled, your spirit restless. Because a restless woman cannot focus on her calling. A restless woman cannot hear from God. But when you guard your peace, you disarm the enemy's weapon. You refuse to give him access to your spirit. You refuse to allow him to plant seeds of confusion and despair. Instead, you build a fortress around your mind and heart. A fortress made of boundaries, discernment, and wisdom. A woman with boundaries is not hard to love. She is hard to misuse. She is not unapproachable. She is simply unshakable. She is not cold. She is clear. And that clarity makes her life powerful. It makes her presence undeniable. It makes her future unstoppable. So let the boundaries stand. Let them guard your heart. Let them protect your peace. Let them preserve the gift inside of you. Because when you honor your boundaries, you honor God's work in you. And when you honor his work, he multiplies it. He expands your influence. He strengthens your voice. He surrounds you with people who value you. And he opens doors that chaos once kept closed. Boundaries are blessings. They are not a sign of selfishness, but a sign of stewardship. They are not a rejection of love, but a protection of it. They are not a denial of connection, but a refinement of it. And when you embrace them, you step into a life of peace, power, and purpose. A woman who respects herself carries a presence that cannot be ignored. She doesn't need to announce her strength. She doesn't need to demand recognition. And she doesn't have to prove her worth. Her very posture, her choices, her silence, and even the way she carries herself testify to the deep well of dignity within her. When she chooses self-respect, she is not only honoring herself, but also sending a message to everyone around her. She becomes an example, a standard, a light. And that light is not just for her own journey. It inspires those who walk behind her, beside her, and even those watching from a distance. In every generation, there are women who shape culture, not by force, but by presence. They are not loud, they are not reckless, and they are not desperate for attention. They walk with self-respect, and that respect becomes contagious. It challenges other women to rise. It reminds young girls of their value, and it even calls men to treat women differently. When one woman dares to stand in her worth, she shifts the atmosphere for those connected to her. That's the power of influence that flows from self-respect. There is something sacred about being unshakable. When a woman no longer tolerates disrespect, when she no longer settles for less, when she no longer entertains chaos, her very life becomes a mirror. Others see what she demands for herself, and it awakens something in them. Women who once thought they had to accept mistreatment begin to see a higher standard. They start asking themselves why they've tolerated so much for so long. They begin to believe they too can draw a line, protect their peace, and honor their worth. Self-respect is not just personal, it is generational. It plants seeds in daughters, nieces, and young women who watch closely, learning from actions more than words. A woman who respects herself reminds others that strength and softness can exist together. She can love deeply, but never at the cost of her dignity. She can give generously, but never to the point of depletion. She can nurture others without neglecting herself. That balance becomes a lesson for others to follow, showing that respect is not about arrogance, but about alignment. It aligns with the truth that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, created in God's image and called to live in a way that honors that truth. Even men who encounter a woman with self-respect are changed by it. They may not say it, they may even resist it at first, but her boundaries and her strength force them to examine how they engage. When a woman sets the standard for her life, men either rise to meet it or fall away. And both outcomes are blessings, because the ones who cannot meet the standard are not meant to stay, and the ones who can are refined by her example. This is why self-respect is not only personal but also communal. It reshapes interactions and creates healthier relationships all around. In a world where so many are desperate for validation, where so many chase approval, a woman who is grounded in self-respect stands out. She does not need the applause of the crowd to confirm her worth. She does not need to beg for love to feel valued. She does not need to lower her standards to keep someone close. She understands that losing people who do not honor her is not loss, it is protection. And by living this truth, she teaches others the same. The inspiration that flows from self-respect often reaches places you may never see. You may never know the young woman watching you from afar, deciding to walk away from a toxic relationship because she saw you do it first. You may never know the daughter who grows up understanding her worth because you lived it out before her. You may never know the friend who finally decides to pursue her dreams because your courage showed her it was possible. Influence is not always loud and obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, and far-reaching. And it begins with the choice to respect yourself. Self-respect also breaks cycles. Generational cycles of silence, cycles of settling, cycles of pain are broken when one woman decides to honor her worth. The choice not to accept disrespect, the decision to set boundaries, the courage to stand tall, it interrupts patterns that may have existed for decades. And once that chain is broken, those who come after walk freer, lighter, stronger. Your self-respect does not only bless you, it blesses generations. When women live with self-respect, entire communities are impacted. Workplaces shift because women no longer tolerate exploitation. Families heal because women set healthier patterns for love and communication. Friendships deepen because respect becomes the foundation. Churches, schools, and even societies are reshaped because women stand in their God-given value. Self-respect is not just a personal shield, it is a public testimony. It says to the world, I am worthy, I am chosen, I am enough. And when enough women rise with that truth, the atmosphere of society itself begins to change. But it all begins within. You cannot inspire others to respect themselves if you secretly despise yourself. You cannot lead others to set boundaries if you constantly compromise your own. You cannot teach dignity if you constantly trade yours away. The power of self-respect begins with the daily choices you make. The way you speak to yourself, the thoughts you entertain, the standards you enforce. Every yes, every no, every silence, every word becomes part of the testimony you're living out, and others are learning from you whether you realize it or not. A woman who respects herself inspires others because she lives in truth. She is not pretending to be strong. She is grounded in strength. She is not faking confidence. She has built it through choices, discipline, and faith. She is not demanding honor, she carries it naturally, and others respond. This authenticity speaks louder than any speech, louder than any advice, louder than any instruction. People may forget what you say, but they never forget what they saw you live. Respecting yourself is not about being perfect, it is about being consistent. It is about choosing over and over again not to betray yourself for the sake of pleasing others. It is about refusing to shrink so others feel comfortable. It is about deciding that your worth is non-negotiable, even on your weakest day. And when you live like that, your life becomes a beacon of hope for those who are still learning to see their own value. You will face resistance, you will face criticism, you will face misunderstandings. Some will accuse you of thinking too highly of yourself. Some will distance themselves because your standards convict them. Some will test your boundaries to see if you really mean it. But every time you stand firm, you grow stronger. Every time you protect your worth, you build courage. And every time you choose dignity, you remind others that they too can choose the same. The beauty of self-respect is that it multiplies. The more you live it, the more others catch it. The more others catch it, the more it spreads. And before long, what began as a personal choice becomes a movement of dignity, strength, and honor. Your self-respect could be the spark that ignites change in your home, your community, your generation. So carry yourself with the dignity that heaven recognizes. Live in a way that honors the gift inside you. Refuse to shrink, refuse to settle, refuse to let the world define you. Because when you respect yourself, you do more than protect your own peace. You inspire others to rise, to believe, to stand tall. And that is a legacy far greater than any material success. It is a legacy that lives on in the women you inspire, the men you challenge, and the generations you strengthen. Self-respect is contagious. It awakens courage. It ignites dignity. It sets a new standard. And when one woman chooses it, she doesn't walk alone. She pulls others into freedom with her. God honors discipline, dignity, and self-worth. These are not just traits of character. They are spiritual principles that align your life with His favor. Discipline is the guardrail that keeps you on the path when distractions try to pull you away. Dignity is the crown that reminds you that you are royalty, chosen, and set apart. Self-worth is the foundation that keeps you from settling for less than what God has declared over your life. When a woman lives with these three virtues, heaven responds. Doors open, opportunities align, relationships are refined, and destiny unfolds because God delights in blessing those who walk in honor of themselves. Discipline is not bondage. It is freedom. It is the quiet power of choosing what matters most over what feels easy in the moment. A woman of discipline is not swayed by every trend, every temptation, or every voice that tries to pull her off course. She knows the value of focus. She knows that her calling cannot be fulfilled if she is scattered in every direction. Discipline gives her the ability to say no to what wastes her time and yes to what builds her future. It shows up in how she manages her energy, how she protects her mind, how she invests her talents. And when God sees that she is faithful with what she has, He entrusts her with more. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is about showing up for yourself and your calling even when no one is watching. That consistency becomes the seedbed for growth, for success, for favor. Dignity is the visible fruit of self-respect. It is the quiet confidence of a woman who knows who she is and refuses to be treated as anything less. Dignity is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is standing tall even when others try to tear you down. It is walking away from disrespect even when loneliness tempts you to stay. It is carrying yourself with grace even when the world tries to strip you of worth. A woman of dignity does not fight for recognition because her life itself testifies. People may underestimate her, but they cannot deny her. Dignity gives you a presence that cannot be ignored, a strength that does not have to shout, a power that draws respect without demanding it. God honors that dignity because it reflects His image. You are His daughter, His masterpiece, His creation. And when you live with dignity, you carry the reflection of His glory. Self-worth is the foundation of both discipline and dignity. Without it, discipline feels like punishment and dignity feels like pride. But when you understand your worth, you see discipline as protection and dignity as your natural inheritance. A woman of self-worth does not measure her value by what she produces, by who she pleases, or by who chooses her. She knows her value is established by the one who created her. She is valuable because God breathed life into her. She is valuable because God breathed life into her. She is worthy because she was designed with purpose. No mistake, no rejection, no failure can strip that worth away. When she knows this, she stops apologizing for her standards. She stops lowering her voice to be accepted. She stops shrinking to make others comfortable. Her self-worth becomes the anchor that allows her to remain steady in storms, unbroken in battles, and fearless in new beginnings. When a woman combines discipline, dignity, and self-worth, her life becomes a testimony. She does not have to prove herself. Her fruit speaks. She does not have to prove herself. Her fruit speaks. She does not have to chase validation. Respect finds her. She does not have to beg for opportunities. Doors are drawn to her presence. God delights in blessing women who carry themselves this way because they are ready to steward the blessing. He cannot pour into vessels that leak, but a woman with discipline holds the blessing. A woman with dignity carries the blessing, and a woman with self-worth multiplies the blessing. She knows who she is and refuses to misuse what God gives her. These virtues also guard against deception. Without discipline, distractions derail you. Without dignity, disrespect defines you. Without self-worth, desperation drives you. But with all three, you are unshakable. You cannot be easily manipulated. You cannot be easily controlled. You cannot be easily broken. You walk with clarity, with authority, with strength. And that strength is not only for you, it becomes a covering for your family, a light for your community, a standard for generations to come. God honors these virtues because they mirror his character. He is a God of order, and discipline reflects that order. He is a God of majesty, and dignity reflects that majesty. He is a God of love, and self-worth reflects the love he poured into you. When you live by these truths, your life begins to align with heaven's rhythm. You stop striving and start flowing. You stop begging and start receiving. You stop wandering and start walking with purpose. Living with discipline, dignity, and self-worth will cost you something. It may cost you relationships that thrive on your lack of boundaries. It may cost you opportunities that require you to compromise. It may cost you opportunities that require you to compromise. It may cost you acceptance in circles that celebrate chaos. But what you lose is nothing compared to what you gain. Because what you gain is peace. What you gain is clarity. What you gain is respect. What you gain is favor from God himself. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, heaven takes notice. Every time you choose dignity over disrespect, heaven records it. Every time you choose self-worth over desperation, heaven responds with affirmation. These choices are not small, they are seeds. And in time, they grow into a harvest that not only blesses you, but blesses everyone connected to you. Your children, your friends, your peers, they all benefit from the harvest of your discipline, dignity, and self-worth. There will be moments when you are tempted to let them go. Moments when giving in feels easier than standing firm. Moments when compromise whispers promises of comfort. But remember, God honors the woman who refuses to bow, who refuses to shrink, who refuses to betray herself. He strengthens her in weakness. He lifts her in weariness. He rewards her faithfulness. A disciplined woman becomes trusted. A dignified woman becomes respected. A woman of self-worth becomes unstoppable. Together, these qualities make her a force that cannot be ignored, a presence that cannot be diminished, a testimony that cannot be silenced. And that is why God honors her, because she honors him by honoring herself. So live with discipline that protects your focus. Live with dignity that guards your crown. Live with self-worth that anchors your soul. Do not compromise. Do not shrink. Do not forget who you are. For in every choice you make to honor yourself, heaven moves in response. And the God who created you, the God who called you, the God who set you apart will lift you higher, bless you greater, and surround you with everything you need to fulfill your purpose. God honors discipline, dignity, and self-worth because they are not just principles of living. They are principles of destiny. They prepare you, protect you, and propel you into the life he designed for you. And when you walk in them, your life becomes the very reflection of his glory on earth. Woman, you walk in them, your life becomes the very reflection of his glory on earth. Woman, you are chosen, you are sacred, and you are enough. Every word spoken, every truth revealed, every principle shared leads back to this. You were never designed to live small, desperate, or broken. You were created to shine with strength, to walk with dignity, and to carry yourself as a reflection of the God who made you. Self-respect is your foundation. It teaches the world how to treat you. It guards the treasure within you, and it keeps you aligned with heaven's purpose. You don't need to beg for love. You don't need to settle for less, and you don't need to carry what was never meant for you. When you protect your peace with boundaries, when you honor your worth with discipline, when you walk with the quiet confidence of dignity, heaven responds. Your life becomes more than survival. It becomes testimony. Your presence inspires other women to rise. Your strength plants seeds in future generations. And your courage becomes a beacon for anyone who has forgotten their value. Every time you choose respect over compromise, peace over chaos, dignity over desperation, you step deeper into the woman God designed you to be. So walk tall, protect your spirit, guard your blessings, focus on yourself, not in selfishness, but in strength. Because even God honors a woman who honors herself. And when you live this way, you won't just change your own life, you will transform the atmosphere around you. Your destiny begins where your self-respect stands. And tonight, you have been reminded that you are worthy, you are powerful, and you are destined for more.